Hey there, you looking kinda cute. Please consider subscribing and check out our Patreon for more. Enjoy the video. The night sky sparkled with countless stars, a vast canvas of twinkling lights that seemed to stretch on forever. Down below, in a small suburban neighborhood, a lone figure stood in the backyard of a modest home, gazing up at the celestial display with a mixture of longing and frustration etched across his face. Cody sighed heavily, his shoulders slumping as he ran a hand through his short, dark hair. The weight of his discontent pressed down upon him, a constant companion that had been growing increasingly difficult to ignore. He'd always felt different, out of place in his own skin, but lately that feeling had intensified to the point where he could barely stand it. I don't know who I am anymore, he whispered to the empty air, his voice barely audible even to his own ears. Everything feels wrong, like I'm living someone else's life. His eyes locked onto a particularly bright star that seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy. Without even realizing it, Cody found himself speaking again, this time with a hint of desperation in his voice. I wish I could see things from a different perspective, to understand what it's like to be someone else, anyone else. Maybe then I'd finally understand myself. For a moment, nothing happened. The crickets continued their nightly chorus, and a gentle breeze rustled through the leaves of the nearby trees. Cody shook his head, feeling foolish for even entertaining the notion that a simple wish could change anything. As he turned to head back inside, a sudden dizziness overcame him. The world began to spin, colors blurring together in a dizzying kaleidoscope. Cody stumbled, his legs giving out beneath him as he collapsed onto the soft grass. What's happening to me? He gasped, his vision growing dark around the edges. The last thing he saw before losing consciousness was that same bright star, now seeming to shine even more intensely than before. When Cody's eyes fluttered open, the world around him had changed dramatically. Gone was the familiar backyard with its neatly trimmed lawn and well-tended flower beds. Instead, he found himself in a small, dimly lit room with stone walls and a rough wooden floor. Where am I? He murmured, pushing himself up into a sitting position. As he did so, he became acutely aware that something was very, very different. His voice sounded higher, more melodious than he was used to, and his body felt wrong. Or perhaps not wrong exactly, but certainly not like his own. Glancing down, Cody's eyes widened in shock. Where his broad chest and flat stomach had once been, he now saw the gentle curves of a feminine figure, clothed in a tattered dress. Long, delicate fingers replaced his own calloused hands, and a cascade of golden hair fell over his shoulders. This can't be real, she gasped, scrambling to her feet. The movement felt strange. Her center of gravity shifted in a way that made her wobble unsteadily. Oh, but it is real, my dear, a warm, gentle voice called out from behind her. And it's about to get even more interesting. Spinning around, Cinderella, for that was who she now appeared to be, came face to face with a kindly-looking older woman dressed in shimmering robes of periwinkle blue. The woman's eyes twinkled with mischief and warmth as she regarded the confused young woman before her. Who are you? Cinderella asked, her voice trembling slightly. The woman's smile widened. Why, I'm your fairy godmother, of course, and I'm here to help you make the most of this extraordinary opportunity. Cinderella's mind reeled, struggling to process the impossible situation she found herself in. Opportunity? I don't understand. What's happening to me? The fairy godmother approached, placing a comforting hand on Cinderella's shoulder. Your wish has been granted, my dear. You wanted to experience life from a different perspective, and so you have. For tonight, you are Cinderella, and you have the chance to attend the royal ball and learn some valuable lessons about empathy and self-discovery. But how? Why? Cinderella stammered, still trying to wrap her head around the bizarre turn of events. Magic works in mysterious ways, the fairy godmother replied with a wink. Sometimes, to truly understand ourselves, we must step outside of our own experiences and see the world through different eyes. You have until midnight to explore this new perspective, to learn and grow in ways you never thought possible. Cinderella took a deep breath, attempting to calm her racing heart. As the initial shock began to wear off, she found herself filled with a strange mixture of excitement and trepidation. What should I do? The fairy godmother's eyes sparkled with delight. First things first, my dear. We need to get you ready for the ball. It's time for a magical makeover. With a wave of her wand, the fairy godmother set to work. Cinderella watched in awe as her tattered dress transformed into a stunning gown of shimmering blue silk, adorned with delicate silver embroidery and sparkling crystals. Her hair, once tangled and unkempt, arranged itself into an elegant updo with tendrils of golden curls framing her face. Now, let's see about your makeup, the fairy godmother mused, tapping her wand against her chin thoughtfully. Every princess needs to look her best for the ball. Cinderella felt a tingling sensation across her face as the magic worked its wonders. She longed for a mirror to see the results, but the fairy godmother was already moving on to the next task. Can't forget the shoes. With another flick of the wand, a pair of exquisite glass slippers appeared on Cinderella's feet. They fit perfectly, as if they had been made specifically for her. How do they feel? The fairy godmother asked, her eyes twinkling. Cinderella took a few tentative steps, marveling at how comfortable the delicate shoes were. They're incredible, she breathed, a smile spreading across her face. I've never worn anything like this before. The fairy godmother beamed. Excellent. Now let's go over a few important things before you head to the ball. First and foremost, remember that you have until midnight. When the clock strikes 12, the spell will be broken and you'll return to your original form. Cinderella nodded, hanging on every word. What else should I know? While you're at the ball, try to immerse yourself fully in the experience. Observe how others interact, how they carry themselves. Pay attention to the little details, the way the fabric of your dress feels against your skin, the sound of your footsteps as you walk, the subtle nuances of conversation between ladies of the court. As the fairy godmother spoke, Cinderella found herself becoming increasingly excited about the prospect of attending the ball. It was all so new, so different from anything she had ever experienced before. One last thing, the fairy godmother added, her tone becoming more serious. This isn't just about having fun at a fancy party. You have a unique opportunity to gain insight into a completely different life. Use this time wisely, and you may discover things about yourself that you never knew before. Cinderella nodded solemnly, understanding the importance of the fairy godmother's words. I promise to make the most of this chance. With a satisfied smile, the fairy godmother waved her wand once more. In a shower of sparkling lights, a magnificent pumpkin carriage appeared outside the small room, complete with white horses and a smartly dressed coachman. Your carriage awaits, my dear, the fairy godmother announced with a flourish. Remember midnight? Cinderella's heart raced with anticipation as she made her way to the carriage. As she settled into the plush velvet seat, she couldn't help but marvel at how different everything felt. The way her dress rustled with each movement, the gentle pressure of the glass slippers on her feet, even the way her body moved. It was all so foreign, yet somehow exhilarating. The journey to the palace passed in a blur of excitement and nervous energy. Cinderella found herself constantly adjusting her posture, trying to find a way to sit that felt natural in her new form. She practiced speaking softly to herself, still marveling at the higher pitch of her voice. As the carriage approached the palace, Cinderella's breath caught in her throat. The building was a masterpiece of architecture, its towering spires and gleaming windows a testament to the wealth and power of the royal family. Crowds of elegantly dressed nobles streamed up the grand staircase, their laughter and chatter filling the air. For a moment, Cinderella hesitated, a flicker of doubt creeping into her mind. Could she really pull this off? What if someone realized she didn't belong? Taking a deep breath, she steeled herself and stepped out of the carriage. The coachman offered his hand, which she gratefully accepted, marveling at how small and delicate her own hand looked in comparison. "You can do this," she whispered to herself, smoothing down her gown and lifting her chin. With as much grace as she could muster, Cinderella began to ascend the stairs. The ballroom was a sight to behold, its high ceilings adorned with glittering chandeliers that cast a warm, golden glow over the assembled guests. Cinderella's eyes widened as she took in the opulent decorations, the sumptuous gowns, and the air of refined elegance that permeated the space. As she made her way further into the room, Cinderella became acutely aware of the eyes upon her. Nobles turned to stare, whispering behind their hands and fans. At first, she feared they had somehow seen through her disguise, but then she caught fragments of their conversations. Who was that stunning creature? I've never seen her before. A visiting princess, perhaps? Such grace, such beauty! A warm flush crept up Cinderella's cheeks as she realized the attention was born of admiration rather than suspicion. She straightened her posture, trying to emulate the confident bearing of the ladies around her. A group of young women approached, their curiosity evident in their eager expressions. "Good evening," one of them greeted Cinderella with a curtsy. "I don't believe we've had the pleasure of meeting before. I'm Lady Amelia, and these are my friends, Lady Beatrice and Lady Catherine." Cinderella's mind raced, trying to recall the proper etiquette for such introductions. She dipped into what she hoped was a passable curtsy, offering a shy smile. "It's a pleasure to meet you all. I'm Ella," she replied, deciding at the last moment to use a shortened version of her new identity. The ladies exchanged delighted glances. "Ella, what a lovely name," Lady Beatrice exclaimed. "Tell us, where are you from? We simply must know everything about you." As Cinderella engaged in conversation with her new acquaintances, she found herself relaxing into her role. The ladies were eager to share the latest court gossip, and she listened attentively, asking questions when appropriate and doing her best to avoid revealing her own lack of knowledge about noble life. "Oh, Ella, you simply must meet the prince," Lady Catherine gushed, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "He's been looking rather bored all evening, but I'm sure the sight of you would lift his spirits considerably." Before Cinderella could protest, she found herself being gently guided across the ballroom floor towards a handsome young man dressed in regal attire. The prince's eyes widened as they approached, his gaze fixed firmly on Cinderella. "Your Highness," Lady Amelia curtsied deeply, the others following suit. "May we present Lady Ella? She's new to court and simply dying to make your acquaintance." Cinderella felt her heart racing as she dipped into another curtsy, praying she wouldn't lose her balance. As she straightened, she found herself looking directly into the prince's warm brown eyes. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Lady Ella," he said, his voice rich and smooth. "I don't believe I've had the honor of seeing you at court before. Might I have this dance?" Time seemed to stand still as Cinderella realized she was being asked to dance by the prince himself. Panic flashed through her mind. She had no idea how to dance, at least not in this form. But as the prince extended his hand, she found herself accepting almost instinctively. "I'd be delighted, Your Highness," she heard herself say, her voice far steadier than she felt. As the prince led her onto the dance floor, Cinderella silently thanked whatever magic was at work for guiding her movements. Her feet seemed to know exactly where to step, her body swaying gracefully in time with the music. "You dance beautifully, Lady Ella," the prince complimented her, a genuine smile lighting up his features. "I must admit, I've been rather bored this evening, but your arrival has certainly changed that." Cinderella felt a flutter in her chest at his words. "You're too kind, Your Highness. I must confess, I was quite nervous about attending the ball." "Oh, and why is that?" he asked, curiosity evident in his tone. She hesitated for a moment, choosing her words carefully. "I suppose I felt out of place. as if I didn't quite belong in this world of glittering ballrooms and royal dances. The prince's expression softened. I understand that feeling all too well. Sometimes, even when you're surrounded by people, you can feel utterly alone. His words struck a chord with Cinderella, reminding her of the feelings that had led to her wish in the first place. "Yes, exactly," she replied softly. "It's as if you're playing a role, never quite sure if you're doing it right." As they continued to dance, Cinderella found herself opening up to the prince in a way she never had before. They discussed their hopes and fears, their dreams for the future, and the pressures they both felt to live up to others' expectations. "You know, Lady Ella," the prince said as the music began to wind down, "I've never met anyone quite like you before. You have a unique perspective on things that I find refreshing." Cinderella blushed, both flattered and a little flustered by his words. "Thank you, Your Highness. I've enjoyed our conversation immensely." As they made their way off the dance floor, Cinderella caught sight of a large clock on the wall. With a start, she realized that it was already 11:30. Her time as Cinderella was rapidly drawing to a close. "Is everything all right?" the prince asked, noticing her sudden change in demeanor. "Yes, I need to leave soon," she replied, trying to keep the panic out of her voice. "I'm afraid I have a rather strict curfew." The prince looked disappointed, but nodded in understanding. "Of course. But before you go, would you care to take a stroll in the palace gardens with me? They're particularly beautiful at night." Cinderella hesitated, knowing she should probably make her exit now to avoid cutting it too close. But the earnest look in the prince's eyes and her own curiosity about experiencing more of this new world won out. "I'd love to," she agreed, taking his offered arm. As they stepped out into the cool night air, Cinderella was struck by the beauty of the palace gardens. Carefully manicured hedges formed intricate patterns, while fragrant flowers bloomed in abundance. Soft lantern light illuminated winding paths, creating a magical atmosphere. "It's breathtaking," she murmured, inhaling deeply to savor the mingled scents of roses and jasmine. The prince smiled, clearly pleased by her reaction. "I'm glad you like it. These gardens have always been a sanctuary for me, a place where I can escape the pressures of court life and just be myself." As they walked, Cinderella found herself reflecting on everything she had experienced that night. The way it felt to move in this new body, the subtle interactions between the nobles, the unexpected connection she had formed with the prince. It was all so different from her normal life, yet somehow it had begun to feel natural. "Lady Ella," the prince said, breaking into her thoughts. "I know we've only just met, but I feel as though I've known you for much longer. There's something special about you, something that sets you apart from everyone else I've ever met." Cinderella smiled softly, her heart fluttering at his words. "I feel the same way, Your Highness. It's as if—" She paused, searching for the right words to describe the sense of belonging and acceptance she had found with him. "As if I've stepped into a dream and found something I never knew I was missing." He stopped walking and turned to face her, taking both her hands in his. "Then let's not waste another moment. Come, I want to show you something." With a mysterious smile, the prince led her deeper into the gardens, away from the softly lit pathways and into the shadows cast by lush trees and towering shrubs. "There's a special place I often come to when I need a moment of peace," he explained. "It's become a sanctuary of sorts for me, and I'd like to share it with you." Cinderella's curiosity and anticipation grew with each step. This was unlike any experience she had ever known. Being whisked away to a secret location by a handsome prince felt like something out of a fairy tale. A soft breeze played with the tendrils of her hair, and she felt her skin prickle with goosebumps as they stepped into a small clearing surrounded by towering trees. A stone bench sat at the center, covered with a layer of velvety moss, and a gurgling fountain played a soft melody nearby. The air was heavy with the scent of damp earth and blooming flowers, creating an enchanting atmosphere. "It's beautiful," Cinderella breathed, turning in a slow circle to take in her surroundings. So serene and peaceful. The prince moved closer, his eyes never leaving hers. "I'm glad you like it. This place holds a special meaning for me. It's where I come to escape the expectations and responsibilities of royal life, if only for a little while." There was an unspoken understanding in his eyes, a mutual acknowledgement of the weight they both carried in their respective worlds. Cinderella nodded, knowing instinctively that he didn't need to say more. As they stood there, the silence between them spoke volumes. Cinderella felt a deep connection with the prince, as if they were sharing a secret that no one else could possibly understand. Without a word, she took a step forward, closing the distance between them. Their eyes locked, and Cinderella saw a question form in the depths of his gaze. Thanks for watching. The rest won't be viewable on YouTube, so check out Patreon if you want more.